He has done an interview saying that he believes that Harry and Meghan's relationship is at a crisis point.
When she doesn't need him anymore, she'll dump him.
Calling her Aunt Katie is obviously going to hit a nerve because the kids do have aunties. Aunt Catherine over in Britain.
I think a word salad might have been one of the more interesting recipes on a cookery show.
I think that he's doing really well in stepping up to that role and showing the importance of the heir and that the role that they can play on the world stage, particularly with people like President Donald Trump, where they need to foster those relationships.
Should he just disappear? I mean, he's as good as disappeared. He's not going to come back into public life. Nobody wants him.
They see him attending what is a big press event. There's lots of TV cameras there. There's lots of family members there. They see it as bad optics, that it looks like he's trying to ingratiate himself back into the royal family. Hello, this is The Sun's Royal Exclusive. I'm Royal Editor Matt Wilkinson. And today we welcome to the show news.com.au's royal reporter Bronte and broadcaster and royal biographer Hugo Vickers. Another week of family high drama as Harry and Meghan's relationship is said to be at crisis point. Prince Andrew re-emerged for Easter, where the Prince of Wales sidestepped his scandal-hit uncle, but will stand in for his father at the Pope's funeral. Hugo, welcome to the show. Why is Prince William going to the Pope's funeral and not King Charles?
Well, that's all protocol. I mean, the Pope didn't come to the Queen's funeral, as you remember. And actually, Prince Charles went to the last, not Pope Benedict, Pope John Paul II's funeral. He had to even postpone his service of blessing by a day, which you remember 20 years ago. It's absolutely correct that it would be the Prince of Wales who goes, so I'm not at all surprised. The King doesn't go to those sort of funerals.
He does. I mean, I think historically, the late Queen, as you point out, didn't go to funerals because they don't want to associate the monarch with mortality, is my understanding. I think she went to Thatcher's funeral and she went to Churchill's funeral, but it's not the King's health, basically. It's not an issue where we're worried about the King.
I mean, the Queen, obviously, Sir Winston Churchill had a state funeral. Obviously, with foreign kings and heads of state coming, it would have been very absurd if the Queen hadn't been there. She led the entire nation on that occasion. She also went to Margaret Thatcher's funeral. The only other one she went to was King Baudouin of the Belgians. I don't know why she particularly went to that one, but she did.
Great.
Otherwise, she's always been represented.
Do you think William is the right guy for this?
Absolutely the right guy. He represented us very well at the reconsecration of Notre Dame Cathedral, and it's very good that he should go there. He might even have another chat with President Trump, who I understand is also going to be present.
Well, there's this move, isn't there, Bronte, for Prince William to be framed as like a global statesman. How do you think he will? How do you think he'll be at the Pope's funeral?
We've seen him do this more and more, as you've just mentioned with those examples, and this is just going to be the latest example of that, seeing him shoulder to shoulder with these world leaders. And we have seen him step up and be deputised in such a strong way for King Charles, because obviously with the King's health battles last year, even though that's not the reason for this one, he has had to step up a lot, and I do think he's doing it very well while juggling family life, and they've got the kids, and he and Catherine are sort of navigating this new era for them, which is a little bit different than it was prior to her getting sick. So I think that he's doing really well in stepping up to that role and showing the importance of the heir and that the role that they can play on the world stage, particularly with people like President Donald Trump, where they need to foster those relationships.
There's Hugo, are you a football fan by any chance?
I'm sorry?
Are you a football fan
No.
by any chance?
Oh.
Well, Prince William is.
Yes, he is.
He will be missing the FA Cup semi-final.
Well, I'm sorry, the Pope's funeral is more important.
The Pope's funeral is more important
Yes.
than
I wonder if it was a conversation, though. And they flagged it and he said, I'll do it, but no, I'm sure he knows. It's the Pope's funeral.
And what do we expect from William? Do we expect more from this, Hugo? Because as heir to the throne, as you rightly pointed out, there is protocol where he goes to funerals instead of King Charles. But is this a place where you think William feels comfortable? Do you think that the training has succeeded? Is he the right man to represent the United Kingdom on the global stage with other world leaders?
I certainly do, and we've seen him doing it already. And it's a little bit like if you go back to the last few months or so of the Queen's reign, when Prince Charles opened Parliament for her, when he presided over Trooping the Colour and things. It's all to do with preparation and eventual transition. He is going to be the next king. And so easing him into this role is the perfect way of doing it. And these events like the Pope's funeral, obviously this is a highly important occasion for the Catholic Church and globally, but it's also a diplomatic occasion. So he has the opportunity to meet other distinguished people and talk to them, and they get to know him. That's all very important.
It's a really interesting point because he will be leading a delegation
He will.
in many ways.
He will.
And only a few weeks ago, I was in Rome and the King did meet the Pope.
That's different, of course. Yes, he did. And I think he was very glad to have that opportunity to see him. And Pope did not look well. I mean, the Pope seems to me to have been incredibly brave to have gone out on Easter Day. He probably knew he wasn't going to be around for very much longer, but he achieved that. And having achieved that, maybe he just relaxed and died a little bit, perhaps like the Queen, having seen off Boris Johnson, and brought in Liz Truss, fulfilled her last constitutional duty and slipped away.
King Charles was the last head of state to meet the Pope.
It's nice that ended up happening because it was right up until the last minute, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where there was no information about it. We thought it wasn't going to happen. And it was only less than 2 weeks ago.
And he met J.D. Vance as well, as you
Yeah.
remember, on the day. I mean, he popped in to see him. So he was doing his best, to keep going, which is what people must always do.
Now, there's been, let's say, speculation that maybe the King didn't go because of his health, but we rule that out. It's protocol. It's the right thing to do for Prince William.
He was never going to go.
He was never going to go. But there is speculation about the Princess of Wales. We're not quite sure. We have been asking these questions, Bronte. We've been asking the palace, is it just the Prince of Wales or will the Princess of Wales join William in Rome? Do you think that Catherine should go, or is it just something for William?
Not a matter of should. I think we'd like to see her go simply because we do like it when her and William step out together. I can't imagine that she would. This would be her first overseas visit since her cancer treatment. But they have made it clear, I think we spoke about on the show a couple of months ago, the palace sort of indicated there would be no overseas trips. And I know this is obviously something they hadn't planned on, but I can't imagine that will change.
Again, it's protocol. He is the one who's going. He is representing the King. So it would be unusual if a couple went, to be quite honest.
One person who we did see this weekend was the Duke of York. Hugo, I want to get your thoughts on this. The Duke of York appeared at Easter. This is the Easter Sunday service. He's not a working royal. He's been banished from all proper royal official events, but he can attend family engagements such as this. There is a lot of talk that maybe this is an effort for him to put himself back into the limelight, to have a return. What's your thoughts on Duke of York?
The trouble about with Prince Andrew is that he has become this figure that everybody is incredibly rude about. I mean, he's the butt of every comedian's jokes. I mean, nobody wants him. But of course he's allowed to go to family events, and so he obviously would have attended and did attend, his parents' funerals, memorial services. He attended the coronation of his brother. That was perhaps slightly more prominent, but of course he should go to church. In fact, I think he would be criticised if he didn't. So, and he went to Easter service last year as well, but obviously the dear media didn't have very much to think about. So they speculate a lot about these matters. No, he's just going to church with his ex-wife and his two daughters and their husbands. They were a little family team, all there at Windsor. Why not?
Well, this is the first time that he's attended something in public. I mean, it's semi-public.
It isn't, actually. No, he was there the previous year as well.
No, I mean, it was the first time that he's appeared in public since the whole spy drama. Because he didn't go to Christmas.
Ah, yes, so that's another thing. But we don't... I mean, please remember that Prince Andrew has never been found guilty of anything at all. It's a lot of speculation. Yeah. So should he just disappear? I mean, he's as good as disappeared. He's not going to come back into public life. Nobody wants it. It wouldn't be advantageous. So he's basically in retirement. But he should certainly go to church on Easter Sunday. And indeed, I can even see a possibility that people would say, well, why is he shirking going to church, which his brother's Supreme Governor of the Church of England? He should be there. And I actually was there on Sunday, so he was absolutely welcome to be with his family. There were 16 members of the royal family in the chapel.
I didn't make it on Sunday myself. I've been previously, when pointed out last year when Andrew was there. He was also there at the King Constantine memorial.
Memorial service.
Yes. But you were there. What do you think of his behaviour? Because we were talking about this in the office, and we were looking at the pictures and the videos that we had. We couldn't make out whether he seemed to be enjoying himself, or he was happy to be there, or whether he felt like he was uncomfortable being at the Easter service. What was your opinion?
Somebody called out Happy Easter to him and he looked very surprised. Well, why shouldn't he have a Happy Easter, poor man? I mean, he's just become this sort of butt for everything, which I think is very unpleasant. I mean, he is a man who is very much down on his luck, and it's not going to change. Despite all the contrary evidence of things like with Virginia Giuffre being proven to be not entirely truthful, it doesn't seem to make any difference for Prince Andrew at all. He's always maintained his innocence on those matters and has never been proved guilty of anything.
Reputationally, it's been a very long few years of him. There's been some very questionable judgment that's occurred all the way through. And I'm not even talking about back to the Virginia Giuffre. I'm talking about, ties with people, including these allegations, the alleged Chinese spy, things like that. But to the broader point, rather than getting into the weeds on all of that, I was going to say, when it comes down to it, you're looking at, with Prince Andrew's involvement in these things, okay, is it a royal family matter or is it a royal business matter? And the reality is they are a family, but of course it is a business. And it is crucial that all of the team and everyone that's on display publicly is in line with what the king wants. Now, obviously he has, the king, I mean to say, the king clearly agrees that Prince Andrew should be at these family occasions. I do definitely understand that argument as well, because it is a family matter. In terms of larger scale events, I don't think there's any appetite from the public for him to return. I can't imagine that the King or Prince William or any of the other senior royals would agree that he should return to public duty. I think that's a matter that's been laid to rest, particularly as there was a YouGov poll last month that showed that 89% of Britons view him unfavourably, which is just truly enormous numbers. So I think when it comes to these things, there's always going to be a matter of the dust being kicked up on Prince Andrew about what should be his future. But surely it has been agreed, even with the royal family, and I would imagine even with Prince Andrew at this point, that he is retired from royal duties, but he will just continue to take part in family events.
We have intelligent viewers watching this show, and all three of us, have been reporting on the royals for many years. So we know the difference between, an official royal engagement and a family engagement. So the optics on him attending Easter, there are people that see this. They see him attending what is a big press event. There's lots of TV cameras there. There's lots of family members there. They see it as bad optics, that it looks like he's trying to ingratiate himself back into the royal family.
That's what they want to see, of course.
Well, I will say this. The photo of Prince William driving Prince Andrew to church, I think it was the first summer break at Balmoral after the late Queen had died. And I understood why Andrew was there for that. Of course, that's a family occasion, and not only a family occasion, a very emotional and significant one. But those images do stay in your mind when you have someone who's as reputationally damaged as Prince Andrew, and you see the heir to the throne, who was extremely popular, driving him and the two of them there together. People are going to see that, and that stays with them. The fact that I've just recalled it as we're talking about it instantly, I think that there is an element of that to it, where you do have to be very careful of the optics, because it's a business. The monarchy is an institution that needs to continue to survive, and its reputation is very important. So, look. I know there's a lot of layers to this one.
What about a little bit of human compassion on Easter Sunday? showing that he's still on good terms with his immediate family. Well, we saw them chatting with each other perfectly happily.
But as you've said, we can distinguish. We of course know the official engagements, and I do think, as I said, that with family occasions, that comes down to King Charles making the decision to include his brother, and I can understand that. I think that's the human compassion element. But beyond that, I think there is a very fine line where they need to continue to be careful that they're towing the line of the optics, so that.
But he also has never said anything in public. When he was asked to step down, he meekly and quietly stepped down.
Yeah. It's a really interesting point here, because not many people come out in support of Prince Andrew. I'm not saying you're coming out in support of Prince Andrew, but you're giving the line that maybe it is a time for forgiveness, maybe it is a time for stop creating controversy every time he shows his face at a family event.
Yes, my feeling really was that the press didn't have enough to talk about on that occasion. The Waleses weren't there because they were spending their, weekend in Norfolk. Had the little kids been there would have no doubt been a lot of focus on that. I think it's all ridiculous, to be quite honest. I think he should be perfectly. He goes to St George's Chapel from time to time for other events, very quietly, and why shouldn't he?
Let's just quickly on William and Catherine then.
Yes.
As you pointed out, they were in Norfolk. There were no pictures. There was no video of them. There were press, there were members of the public at Mary Magdalene Church outside Sandringham. But we didn't actually see them there, but they had a private Easter service away from the royal family. Do we read anything into that, or am I guilty of trying to stoke controversy in the media?
I have huge sympathy for Prince William and his family. I mean, Prince William, one of the problems about being Prince of Wales is you never know when you're going to become king. If your father is ill, still having treatment 14 months later, that becomes more acute. as you rightly say, his wife has also been ill, and we don't know how ill, but she has obviously been very ill at one point. He also has a small family, and then he has all the other things that Princes of Wales have to think about that you and I don't have to think about. And so he has many, many things on his plate. And if he wants to spend a quiet weekend with his family in Norfolk, good for him.
I think as well, this has been you can't imagine that there will be another opportunity for William and Catherine moving forward to have a reset and to really rebalance what they're going to be doing. And I think that this is a really good example of that. Last year, obviously, they weren't taking part in Easter because Catherine was sick. But this year, they do have the opportunity to have a quieter family Easter. They're not obligated to attend. And as a result, because there is so much public sympathy for what they've been through and they're wanting to have more private time as a family, I think it's a really good opportunity where they're now able to draw it all back and actually just opt in on opportunities that they want to going forward. I think that's been something that I've noticed over the last few months. I think it's going to be a little bit more carefully selected.
I think that Prince William's quite often criticised for not doing enough royal duties. I mean, I've heard that said. But actually, I think, he is a modern father. He's very hands-on. They do a lot of school runs. They go to school matches. They spend a lot of time with those children. Surely we have to commend that, don't we?
Do you think they were avoiding Andrew, or is that...
No. Come on, that's going a step too far.
I don't think they were avoiding Andrew. I think it's easier that they didn't have to worry about it, but I certainly don't think that was the reason.
And Hugo's also pointed out that it was okay both of you pointed out that William and Catherine went for a private ceremony, and that's absolutely fine. Andrew could have gone for a private ceremony. He didn't have to appear in front of the cameras.
Well, I'm sorry to go back on it, but why shouldn't he go to church with his family on Easter Sunday?
His daughters were there, I suppose.
He's not asking to do anything more. He's agreed to step down. He's never made any public statements. He's occasionally, said something, made a statement if something's been sort of said against him, but not very often. And that's always done very privately. He's basically accepted his lot.
Tom Bower has done an interview over the weekend when he's spoken about his second book that he's doing on the Sussexes. The first one was mainly on Meghan, and the second one is going to be about the Sussexes as a couple into their relationship. He has done some books on the King in the past, which I have poured through, and there's so much detail. I have read Tom Bower's Rebel Prince, and it is a very, very thick and compelling book. But he has done an interview saying that he believes that Harry and Meghan's relationship is at a crisis point, and he says that they want different things and they face a fight for survival. What do you think of that take from Tom Bower on Harry and Meghan?
I think they're always at a crisis point. Because they've left the royal family, and the royal family are working for the nation, United Kingdom, Commonwealth, and putting things into life. They've taken the celebrity route, which means they have to completely reinvent themselves the whole time to keep in front of the public, public opinion. So they do, which they do quite effectively, but they're always changing direction. Therefore, they must always be at a crisis point. I have a feeling this story is going to end badly, certainly for Prince Harry.
How do you mean?
In the long run. Well, I don't see it lasting. I mean, I don't wish them ill, but I just, if you look at, people actually always act in character. I mean, I'm a biographer rather than a journalist, so I look at how people deal with their lives. And she's dumped her father, her first husband, Jessica Mulroney, the entire British royal family. Who is next to the chop?
Well, who's next in line?
Exactly.
You're suggesting possibly Prince Harry.
Well,
they say it's a crisis point.
When she doesn't need him anymore, she'll dump him.
In terms of Tom Bower's book, I interviewed him actually recently for his Victoria, for the House of Beckham book, and he doesn't pull any punches, so I can imagine that this book will be that again. But what will be, I was thinking about it when I heard about this book. I thought, okay, what don't we know about them, or what area of their life hasn't been examined? We've obviously had endless reports about them from themselves as well, including their Netflix series and Harry's book, everything over the last few years. What's been sort of the one area that possibly will be, ripe for examination is the last 12 months, because there has been a lot of redirection for them, as you've mentioned. There's been, deals collapsing, so the last 12 to 18 months, deals collapsing, Meghan's launching a new business that has had a few twists and turns and snafus, and there have been more reports than ever about the state of their relationship, both professionally and personally. We don't know what the truth of that is, but I don't know that this book will be able to also find out for sure, but that's an area that we haven't examined, and it's an area of, I think there has been some turmoil, just even professionally. We can see that from the way that some of the businesses and their ventures have gone recently. So that's probably the part that I'm interested in. I hope there's not more re-examination of prior to that, because surely surely we've done that now. Even by them, we've all talked about it.
It is. It's the relationship between Harry and Meghan that is the most fascinating because, we have body language experts, you have all these kind of experts coming on saying, oh, they look like this. We see videos of them in Colombia. Harry looks grumpy, Meghan trying to take centre stage. We all analyse it all the time and it fills online, it fills the newspaper, it fills social media. It would be nice for someone to actually give us some revelations about what is actually happening.
Exactly.
I'd be absolutely delighted if they were having having a wonderful time and having a wonderful life out there. I mean, that'd be fantastic. But people will be interested in what is going on behind closed doors at Montecito.
Absolutely. I think it's the state of their relationship right now is what people are interested in because there has been so many contradictory reports about how they're faring in their new life. I say this because it's been 5 years since they left, but how this life is panning out for them in California and whether or not that has been helpful or detrimental to their relationship. I think that's the part we want to look at.
He's also... Sorry, Hugo.
I live in a certain amount of chaos, and I found a copy of Hello magazine lying on the floor, and I picked it up, and there was a picture of Prince Harry grinning and looking so happy. And I thought, hang on a minute, what's this? Dated from 2015. He does not look a happy man now.
No, we've discussed this a few times, and there's been many occasions, I think, particularly in Vickers in Canada recently, where and I was in Germany in Vickers a couple of years ago, and there's just a change when Meghan arrives. Everything gets tense when she's not there.
You bet.
Harry's having drinks with his friends and stuff like that. So Tom Barr also called the Sussexes relentless and restless. Do you think that's an apt description, particularly in the last couple of years?
Yes, I do. Yes, I certainly do. I mean, as I said before, they're always having to change direction. They're always having to go to new things. And I think that's why there's a certain amount of tense behaviour in their office because, sort of nobody knows what's the next thing is going to happen. If things are going well, then people on the whole actually are usually quite calm and enjoying themselves. But if things are going badly, it's like, that's your fault, we've got to move on, you got that wrong,
That's a really interesting point. So the fact that they're diving off in so many different directions kind of shows there isn't like a proper management or a proper course, an agreement behind the scenes.
Well, I would have said so. And I watched a little bit of the cooking program, and she's sort of dissecting petals and scattering them over salads in other people's kitchens. I mean, there's no recipe given at the end. There's no way of following these things. So it's not really about food. It's all about her.
The relentless and restless, I think that piece that came out earlier this year in Vanity Fair, I think that spoke a lot to professionally why that seems to be the case. Those words especially, in the terms of them not really having a clear idea of what they're doing. And we have spoken on this show a few times about how that seems to boil down to the post-royal identity crisis for both of them, which is that they are in a royal no man's land. There isn't really a blueprint for them to follow to find success, career-wise after leaving working royal duties. And so therefore that has to add a lot of pressure. And it also could, the fact that they don't seem to have landed on paths, although Meghan is in the midst of it now and we will see how this new venture plays out for her. But for Harry as well, it doesn't seem like they've really figured out exactly who they want to be or who they're supposed to be after leaving the royal family.
Do you think they're at a crossroads or they're at a junction at the moment in their career? Or?
I think Harry still is. You sort of get the impression that he'd be really happy to just sort of be surfing and doing some charity duties every once in a while, but that's clearly not Meghan's focus. And that in itself is a relatively relatable issue, which is when couples reach those points where they're branching off with different goals for their long-term future. Meghan wants to be a billionaire celebrity. I think Harry appears to be happy to just do a few charity engagements and focus on those things that he likes. But outside of that, it has to be adding pressure to, and of course we don't know for sure, but from the outside, it looks like it has to be adding pressure.
I'm looking forward to hearing more from Tom Barr, and we'll try and get him on the show and see what else he knows. Hugo, you mentioned you watched Meghan's cookery show, which we've all had to sit through and digest and write some exciting copy on, or in my case, try to avoid writing any exciting copy on.
It did inspire some very good praise from the commentators, I thought.
I thought everyone excelled themselves, didn't they? Both sides of the Atlantic.
I particularly liked the line, I think it was Hilary Rose in The Times, who said, imagine the face of the children expecting a piece of cake in their goodie bag when they find some seeds in a decompostable pot to plant it in.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Well, there was no children in they had children's party and no children. But it was with a heavy heart I have to talk about Meghan's latest podcast episode. Has anyone been listening to it? Did you listen to this week? Oh, sorry, Bronte has her hand up.
I did put my hand. I did listen. I will say this. they're clearly good friends. Katie Lee seems that he's a very accomplished businesswoman.
Well, they pay each other compliments a lot and laugh at each other's jokes. Does that necessarily mean that they're good friends?
I know. I'd like to go on the show and just be lavished in praise. It seems to be what you get when you go there. But it was genuinely a pleasant conversation. But again, this is supposed to be providing tips and insight into building business. And I was about 2/3 of the way through when I realised they hadn't touched on that at all. And that's the purpose of the podcast. So it just doesn't seem to be leaning into anything meaty or anything that you can really take away from it, or its purpose. So that was my review of this one. As I said, it's a pleasant one. I don't think you'd be particularly gripped by it. I was doing other stuff while I listened to it. It was fine, but I didn't take away any solid tips, unfortunately.
Did you get through it, Hugo?
I'm sorry, I've been rather busy. I haven't had a chance to listen to it.
I don't think me and you are the target audience anyway. Let's be honest.
So, no, but it's the same thing. Is that there's, there are other people who are much better at telling you these things. There are other people who are better at doing cookery programs. There are other people who are better at advising how to found a business. I mean, they're sort of latching on to things. Well, she is in particular, and it's just hard to see where it's going. I mean, I hate to say it, but my feeling at the end of the day is that Prince Harry is kind of petrified of her and petrified of losing her. Do you know that kind of syndrome people get into? Mm-hmm. See if I'm right.
No, I think it's been phrased that way. That I think there was an article in the United States that said that she's just awful, but he's an enabler, and it's almost like he's aware, but he can't actually get out of it or do anything about it.
The other thing which is so sad is that he's when he does things like, well, the Centre Barley charity's gone wrong. In Vickers games, he still does, but he's very good at those things, and that's what he's been trained for.
Yes.
And he hasn't been trained for any of this stuff. And he's not very good at it. He's brought in I only watched the very end of the cookery programme to see him brought in, to sort of smile
very brief.
Nervously, briefly. But he has to be there because he has to, like with the Oprah Winfrey interview, he had to be hiked into a chair at the end to show that he was approving of it. Or seeming to. You
say that he's afraid of losing her. Again, of course, we don't know what's going on in their relationship. But with that said, even just speculating on that, you'd say he is someone who is in such a unique position. There is only a small handful of royals and people that had the profile that he has. And you have to imagine that, if that relationship did fall apart for whatever reason down the line, really, where does that leave him? You can imagine that he would be scared of that.
Well, he has to come home, doesn't he, eventually, if he can.
That's probably scary for him.
But the children, well, yes, because he's been complicit in a lot of the things that have gone on, although I think he's been made to do many things. We must be very nice to him if he does come home. But then, of course, there's the issue of the children. And, I see him sort of ending up in an Airbnb in California, sort of trying to get access to them. It could be terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are humans here. There are lives and there's relationships and there's children and there's all sorts of people related to it. But we've been covering the royals so many times, nothing would ever surprise me. You always got to be prepared. Anything can happen. It is a family at the end of the day, and this is what happens with families.
That's the truth, isn't it?
We talk about families. What do you think that one of the most interesting things, or possibly the only interesting thing on this podcast, which Hugo, apologies, you didn't listen to, and I appreciate that, but she mentions that the guest, Katie Lee, she says that when Katie Lee turns up at their Montecito mansion, Archie and Lilibet call her Auntie Katie.
Yes, she did say that on there. It was, for context, it was off the back of Katie saying that she was sad not to have been blessed with children herself, so that was obviously a personal spot for her, and she said, I'll just be the cool auntie. With that said, it's a very, it's the comment clearly was going to, Megan's comment about her kids calling her Aunt Katie is obviously going to hit a nerve because the kids do have aunties and Aunt Catherine over in Britain that I don't think that they have any sort of relationship with, so it would clearly hit a nerve. Yeah, it was an interesting comment, I would say, and obviously we've picked up on it. When I heard it, I thought, that's...
Those children are surely going to resent at some point the fact they're suddenly going to realise that their first cousin is the future king. They could have been enjoying life at Windsor and all sorts of things. So, I mean, children are not stupid. I mean, they're going to realise that at some point and probably want to have some sort of connection.
And hopefully that's something that does happen down the line. This is a new generation we're talking about in terms of William and Catherine's kids and the Sussexes. Maybe they'll all forge that themselves. I tell you, the
great hope for that is Princess Eugenie, I think, because there was some talk of him going to have a house in Portugal. Do you remember?
Yes.
And And she is the one who is still able to be in touch with them. And she, I suspect, could be the one who could link the children together. That's what I'm hoping.
That would be nice.
Well, interestingly, this is a bit of a diversion off, but I understand that Eugenie had fallen out, or Harry and Meghan had fallen out with Eugenie because she was seen pictured with Piers Morgan having dinner about a year ago. They went for a pub lunch and there was a bit of upset in Montecito because obviously Piers Morgan and Meghan have bashed heads in the past, and Harry have bashed heads in the past, and that they took a dim view of Eugenie going out for
well, I hope that relationship does survive, because I think that's a really important link.
It's his last remaining link.
And he's been so close with her. Yeah.
Well, the King's left the door wide open for him, but then there's this sort of issue that Prince Harry seems to think the royal family should be apologising to him, whereas it should be the other way around. And the King's got a lot of other things on his mind, but he's never responded to anything. He's left the door open. I think, he would do well to try to sort of do something. We don't know whether anything's going on behind the scenes. He's got much more hope of reconciliation with the King than with his brother.
Well, I think the general feeling is that Harry probably needs to apologise.
He certainly
either
does.
publicly or privately, and then we can...
move on, yeah. That's the way, isn't it?
We can't move on just yet, because we need to just... Quick little chat, a little bit more on the episode. Bronte, you might be the target audience for this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? You might for this show. It's something that I imagine that you could enjoy. But what do you think about? She was talking about the change in the name from American Riviera Orchard and As Ever. She also seems to be trying to clear things up. It's not just about being an entrepreneur. She seems to be tidying up things that she's previously said in her life and how her brands come about. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I do think she's going back on a few things, as in returning to the subject of a few things that she is trying to clarify. The trademark thing was interesting because when she announced, I think it was in February, a couple of weeks before With Love Meghan premiered, she announced that it was that American Riviera Orchard was going to be called As Ever. And when she said that, it was the reason she gave in that video was that it was because the original name had limited her to products that were manufactured or grown in that area, and I think she wanted to expand it out. In this one, in the podcast episode, that's not what she said. She actually said that it was because, and it was a very interesting choice of words from her. She said that she'd kind of fallen out of love with the name a little while back because it was a word salad. Now that phrase, I mean, it gets used a lot these days and accurately. That is something that has been put to her a lot, the way she speaks. They say, Meghan speaks in word salads. And for her to use that, I mean, it could be one of two things. She's either owning it and saying, yes, I do, or it was a little bit of a pushback, a bit of a dig back at the press, because that is something that has been attached to her so many times. So that was really interesting. But there was no mention of that locally grown issue. Or the trademark issue itself, which I think is the main problem.
I think a word salad might have been one of the more interesting recipes on her cookery show.
Matt.
Some alphabet spaghetti or something
Very
like that.
good.
Prince Louis, 7 years old. We were talking about Lilibet and Archie not seeing their cousins and family. I'm sure they will see on the internet or online if they get the chance. Picture of Louis at 7 looking quite grown up, possibly.
So grown up. I can't
Time moves on, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes.
Suddenly he's 7 years old.
Yes.
What do you make of this of the photograph they put out? It was taken at Norfolk earlier this year. He looks quite smart because normally we're used to the playful young Louis, but he looks a little bit more sensible here. He's wearing a jumper and he's wearing jeans and he looks a little bit more grown up maybe.
Well, they're all. I mean, is it fair to say they're all so cute? Those children. I mean, they're great. I mean, they should. Whenever they appear, the world absolutely falls over itself, and so the more we see of all three of them, the better, in my view. And I thought that photograph that he took of his mother, which was rather interesting, showed a sort of... You may not have liked the photograph, it's quite dark in some ways, in every respect, but it showed a sort of, inner intelligence, I thought.
I thought it was the same. It's such a cute photo. I like that this is the royal tradition that we get a new portrait of them on their birthdays. Yeah. It was a shame that Catherine didn't take it. But I love seeing her photos. But I think,
good,
she's really good. And last year, I think she was in the picture, but she hadn't taken it, obviously, because she was in it. But yeah, a great photo of him. And I sound like such a parent because I have a 4-year-old. But where has the time gone? Well, yeah. How is he 7?
Enjoy every minute of it.
He looks so grown up. Yes.
Can I say that I think he looks like Michael Middleton?
Oh, he does.
As well he should. As well he
Yeah.
should, yes.
Yeah, there's definitely a similarity there. Obviously, as well he should.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a clear link there.
Right then, everybody. Deep breath.
Okay.
We have a little bit of time for our quickfire questions at the end of the show. Okay? Hugo, I'll come to you first, if that's all right. If you were to bag an invite into any royal event, what would you like to go to?
Well, I'm rather lucky. I do get invited sometimes. The Garter ceremony, I think. I've been to every one since 1965, and I'm looking forward to going again this June.
Inside or outside?
Inside.
Inside? You're inside the Garter ceremony?
Yeah, well, we won't go to that, but yes, I am, yes.
Oh, wow, that's
Do you
fascinating.
get a +2 or? If you get a +2, Matt and I will come along.
Well,
I'm always stuck outside watching everyone whiz past.
Right. Well, I've had a long association with St George's Chapel. I mean, when I was at school, I used to be a guide on Sunday afternoons. That goes back, it's nearly 60 years, I hate to say.
Wow.
And I'm still involved, so that's
I love
what's
St
fun.
George's Chapel.
It's wonderful.
glorious.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Mine's a little different. I would love to go to a royal Christmas. I think every family Christmas is a little bit of chaos, and I would love to see the royal edition of a Christmas, a family Christmas.
Hold on, Hugo, have you been invited to a royal Christmas?
No, but when I did the book with the Duke of Kent, he said that the exciting moment was when, because everybody was to put their presents in, and the Queen would open the doors, and all the children would rush in to see what they were going to get. I mean, he became really animated when talking about that.
Next question. What would you title Tom Bower's new book on the Sussexes?
Oh, the knife goes in.
It's not bad. Got to take one of his pull quotes and make it like in crisis. What was it? Yeah, Sussex in crisis.
At crisis point.
There you go. That one. That's good.
Okay. On his 7th birthday, what is your favourite Prince Louis moment?
Oh, dancing, trooping the colour. It's got to be when he was doing the funny little dance. I love that video.
Yes, I think, and he was also good at the pageant, wasn't he? The Jubilee pageant. Yeah.
He's so fun.
Yeah. No,
I think during the Jubilee, we were called to a rota event, and it was kept very quiet, but all 3 children and 2 parents had gone to like a scout hut, I think, or they'd gone to a little scout troop. And there was one little moment, I captured it on video, where they're walking away and there's a curb, and Louis does a little skip and he jumps off the curb, like it's almost like jumping into a puddle, and it was like the sweetest moment.
So cute.
Yes.
And finally, if you were at the brainstorm session for Meghan Markle's brand name, what would you have offered up?
Oh, golly.
Yeah, look, I'm sure there's a million great puns out there. None of them are in my brain right now, but I would say this. I just wish she'd named it all one thing, either With Love Meghan for all of it, or As Ever, maybe throw a Meghan in there as well. For all of it, I just think it needed to be one name. American Riviera Orchard should have been shot down in the boardroom meeting immediately.
Yeah, I think, the With Love Meghan would be a good brand name if you're wanting it to be supportive of her, yes.
Okay. Well, it's As Ever, and it just goes on forever and ever, doesn't it? With Harry
I
and
think
Meghan,
it's
so.
quite likely to.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, thanks, guys. It's been awesome today. Really
you.
appreciate it. Right, that's all we have time for on this week's Royal Exclusive. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments as we do read them, and don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next week.